Summer in the hills, those hazy days I do remember. We were running still, had the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms, this is home.
Okay, welcome everyone to my podcast, or rather live stream, whatever this is. So, it has been a while, right? Like a couple of months, I guess. When was the last live stream? Was it in September? Probably in August. Busy times, basically. But busy times are mostly over for me. So I should be able to go back to streaming to some extent. Not sure if fully, not sure if every week, but to some extent only. And yeah, apologies if I will be coughing today. I have a cold or something, hopefully cold. Anyway, so what will we be doing today? I have absolutely no idea. As you can see, the topic is set to random topics, which means we will be talking about random stuff. So if you have any questions about, I don't know, security, programming, the industry or whatever, just feel free to ask. I think it's going to be a Q&A session today, mostly. In the meantime, I'll probably be just working on my live stream script, since I think there are like almost all moderators today. I see Masakra, I see Foxtrot Charlie, I see KrzaQ, I see Disconnected on the chat. So yeah. So I need to basically reorg my script to be able to display information about more than one moderator. As you can see, currently we have info about KrzaQ here, but that should actually be rotating every couple of, I don't know, every 10 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Anyway, so again, welcome, especially if you're on one of our chats, on YouTube chat. Where's my YouTube chat? Oh, I have it open. Perfect. On IRC or on our Discord chat. Welcome everyone. If you have any questions, you can ping one of our moderators today, which is either Foxtrot Charlie, KrzaQ, or Masakra, or if you even catch Disconnected, feel free to ping him, why not? But if you have any questions, you can also do !Q and then the question, and this will be magically transferred to my question panel, so I can actually answer it. Now, if you do !Q on Discord, I think we still don't get to see your nickname. So feel free to just like repeat your nickname, !Q, then your nickname, and then something, because reasons, yeah, we have. I guess I should start noting stuff we could fix, since I'm going to probably have some more time. Okay, so until questions arrive, do we have a bot running actually? Because I see there are some questions already on YouTube, but I don't think they are populated in our channel. So Foxtrot or KrzaQ, if you could take a look what's up. Okay, so I'll just start with the questions I see that were not populated. Have you ever thought about opening your own company? Yes, I even had a company for a very short while, very short while, but yes, in general, yes. But I will not go into details here. When is OS development? I have no idea, but that's a Polish question, so I have like a question related to Polish live stream, so I have no idea why it's asked here. How to install PyOpenCL using pip3 on Windows? I don't know. Does it not work just out of the box? If it doesn't work out of the box, I have no idea. I wasn't using PyOpenCL, but maybe I should try it. But I don't know. That's a question for like a Python forum, I guess. Okay, then one question from Discord, I believe. Do you plan to get interested in AI? I do have it on my to-do list somewhere far, so we'll get there. Okay, let me just... Okay, the questions can keep coming. I will go back to them shortly. Let's jump to a browser so I can kind of tell you why I was not here. So I do believe I had a browser, so here we go. Okay, first of all, I was not here because I had a talk on, and I apologize, I do not speak Italian, so Bergamoscenza, I think it's the way you pronounce it. Here we go. Yeah, it's basically a science festival in Italy, and while obviously it was online this year, there were actually pretty interesting, pretty fun talks. At least I think they were pretty interesting and pretty fun because it was actually in Italian. So it was interesting to actually do a talk in Italian, and it wasn't really a talk. It was like this. One of our friends reached out to me basically whether I would like to do a talk for Bergamo Scienza, but it turned out that it's not really a talk, it's more like a discussion between two people who are, well, in security industry with a moderator. Now, the moderator and the other person, Cesare, they spoke Italian. I do not speak Italian. I'm really bad even with like 3 basic words, like how do you say, like good morning, excuse me, and so on. And thank you. So so that meant I had to work with a simultaneous translator, and the translator was absolutely amazing. She was absolutely amazing. Like, they were speaking something and immediately I get a translation, and then when I spoke something it was immediately translated into Italian, and that worked marvelously. Though I did have a piece of paper in front of me which said like speak slowly, because if I would speak like I'm speaking right now, then the translator would have no chance. Basically, she would have no chance. Well, maybe she did. She was really awesome. But yeah, we were basically asked to talk slowly. It was pretty fun, and I think it went pretty well. There is actually a recording of it if you do speak. Is this? No, this. What is it? It's probably not this one. But that was the speaker as well. We'll find it. Okay, I think this is the YouTube channel. Let's see videos. And yeah. This is our talk, and yeah, it went pretty well. As you can see, same background. Basically, this is Cesare, and we went through like the question is like, what is a hacker capable of? This is what this question means. I'm going to throw the link here and there on the chats in case you actually speak Italian and want to take a look. And yeah, we try to present to like general non-technical audience who is a hacker, what do hacker do, what does hacker do, how do hackers break into machines, and that, for example, that users usually just pwn themselves, and technical hacking is a little bit different from what cyber criminals use. It's a little bit intertwined, obviously, right? But a lot of it is just like, yeah, you download an executable and you get self-pwned, basically. So there was a talk about it. It went, I think it was supposed to go for 40 minutes originally, but actually there was quite a lot of people who were interested in it, and we got kind of extended. We extended it a little bit, which was pretty fun. So that was nice, and I was actually like really honored to be invited, because if you look at like who is usually invited to this conference, is like even let's go back to the channel, okay? So here, and we go back to the channel, and now we go to videos. We sort by most popular, and you like from this, I wanted to show you. Is it this? No. Okay, I want to show you. Okay, I think it's this one though. Whatever. The talk, which was basically the most popular one, was of an astronaut, like somebody who was actually in space, an Italian astronaut. So that was pretty amazing. But I think like the inauguration talk, like this year or last year, was done by several Nobel Prize winners. So when I basically saw the agenda, I was like, wow, this is like absolutely amazing. So yeah, that took some time, but in honesty, most time took the Accelerate event. So if we go to my Twitter, and we go to this one, for example, but I'm looking for more ones. Yeah, for example, this one. So this was the Accelerate event. The Accelerate event was technically Google CTF Finals, or rather Google CTF Final event, because, well, usually the finals were in London, in one of the Google offices there. but because of, well, 2020, hello, we couldn't do it there. We couldn't do it an offline tournament, which would be pretty amazing to do. So at the end of the day, we decided to do this event. So technically it was like this. We were supposed to do Accelerate after or like before the CTF final event in London, like in person and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, because 2020, the Google CTF had only an online round this year with prizes already on the online round. But we used it as a qualifier to do still the Accelerate event. And the Accelerate event is basically a speed hacking event, meaning it was like a mix of CTFs, speedrunning, and game hacking. So we basically took some bits and pieces from each of them and created a custom game, which was, well, it didn't have a name, it was just called Accelerate anyway, or the game, we refer to it as the game. And it was written in JavaScript, really simple JavaScript. That was the idea, but like we don't use any frameworks, it's just like written from scratch, super simple JavaScript, so it's easy to understand and easy to hack on. And then we gave the game to 16 top teams from, actually 16 qualified teams from the online CTF, from the Google CTF, a week before the competition, and told them, yeah, this is the game you'll be playing, hacking. And the game had both CTF tasks, like you approach a terminal, like you can basically see here, this character is standing next to a computer, basically the same one here is like, they're kind of obscuring it, but there's a computer here. And that cat connected through some TCP port to a normal CTF task. And so there were like CTF tasks in game. You get a flag, then you entered it in a flag console. This is a flag console. But there were also in-game tasks, which meant you had to find during the match a glitch and then exploit it to also get a flag to solve another challenge. And yet another type of tasks were basically kinda glitchless tasks, which required the players to actually be able to hack the game a little bit to pass the task. For example, there was a huge tower with staircase. The problem, staircase was made of platforms, and the platforms were invisible. So, well, if you didn't see the staircase, there was absolutely no chance of you getting up there. So yeah, you had to somehow make the collisions display so you could actually know where the platforms are. Now, each match, there were 5 matches, 4 qualifying matches, 4 teams in each match. So yeah, as you can see here, this is actually a screenshot from the final match. There were 4 teams, and the match had 90 minutes time limit. Like, compare this to a CTF, where in CTF you have 48 hours, right? And here you have 90 minutes. This isn't a complete story, however, because it's actually 30 minutes before the match, the teams got the package of the map which will be used during the match, and the game itself, like the JavaScript code of for that match, because it changed from match to match. So yeah, every match there are new glitches, new changes to the engine, and so on and so forth. And yeah, and then 30 minutes, they have 30 minutes to do patch diffing, to analyze the game, to modify the hacks that they had. And yeah, and then time start, and they had to go through this large map, basically hack all the CTF tasks, find game glitches and exploit them, and also like solve like map-based challenges, basically, like for example, respawn teleporting, avoiding dev zones, and so on and so forth. And it was super fun. In addition, we actually did like commentating, like an esport. So every team casted the desktop, and then we had a couple of commentators who were CTF players and so on and so forth. For example, we had Zeta2 from Pony Race also commentating. And everything is recorded, and this will be released soon-ish. It was supposed to be already released, in all honesty, but technical problems. So we'll release it probably next week. The game should be open sourced, and the 5 matches we have should be released with the commentary, so you can watch. You can see the teams did absolutely amazing. The tooling the teams prepared is absolutely awesome. This is why I also opened this one. I'm going to give you a link to this, because I think KrzaQ actually already did an interview with one of the players from the Flat Network Society, one of the finalists, and they showcased their own tooling in that. So, and the tooling was absolutely amazing. Like, really, I was super both astounded and also proud, like how well the teams did on that, and what kind of tooling they actually prepared for this. This was an experimental event, right? Like, the prizes are fine, but like, you know, for a top level CTF, was not really like top tier prizes, but the teams put quite a lot of effort. In the end, PPP won. Congratulations. Kind of spoiler, but it's already on Twitter for some time. So yeah, I wasn't here because I was basically making this game like from scratch, and it was fun. I learned a lot about JavaScript, and because we did want the players to have only hack the game in controlled ways, we had to simulate the game on the server side. So you played the game on the client side, send the input, send the calculated state for the next tick to the server, and the server took the current state, which they had the input, calculated the new state, and checked if both states actually match. Which means, like, if you would, in your state, just teleport somewhere, the calculated simulated state would say, no, with these inputs, it's impossible for you to be in this location, connection killed. Yeah, we actually, due to my mistake in refactoring and JavaScript being JavaScript, we ended up allowing, by accident, a speed hack to be used, but that was fine. And for the final match, there was actually even an intended speed hack, which every team used, which was pretty fun. So yeah, that was fun. I'm going to probably talk about a bit more about the game after it's released. I can show you a little bit more. So yeah, just an explanation why I was busy basically. It was really fun writing it and like working with a lot of amazing people on this. Like Ian helped me a lot with the game, and we have Nicola, who basically created all the design for it, and yeah, like a lot of people like Julian, and watch the videos, there's a credit list. But this was really fun to both organize and like also code the game, so I hope you will like it once we release it soon. Okay, so that's that. Now we can go back to questions, because I actually do not have anything else which I wanted to, or is there anything else? I don't think so. I got quite a lot of new books, and we probably should do some, at some point, go through them. And yeah, like I have a couple of new editions which you might be interested in, but maybe not today. By the way, do not do any donations today because the animation isn't working due to reasons. I wasn't streaming so long that actually I got the quota for my YouTube API got squashed to 0, like zip null, which means no animation. Okay, so questions. Okay, I see. Okay, I see that we do not have the bot that is capturing the queue on YouTube chat because of the same issues why we do not have this. But this is being worked on. Hopefully it will be fixed this week, maybe. I did all the paperwork for that, so hopefully. Which means, my dear moderators, if you could actually go through the YouTube chat and add manually the queue questions to the panel, I would be really, really grateful. Thank you. And in the meantime, I'm going to go through the questions which are already there. Okay, I'm going to show the question here. This should work, hopefully. I do have a new OBS version as well, so there might be issues with that. If you have, this is by the way not from Foxbridge, but this is the bug I mentioned. If you have a very complex decryption-encryption routine, we tend to do dynamic analysis. How would you go about reversing that complex routine by static analysis if it's not a popular algorithm and no crypto constants? Well, it depends on what I want to achieve, right? I mean, do I want to do cryptanalysis on it? If I want to do cryptanalysis, then there isn't an easy way. You just have to do like full-blown reverse engineering on it, right? If you do want, however, if you don't want to do cryptanalysis, then the question is like, why do you care? Why do you care about reverse engineering it? Don't you just like grab the blob, put it somewhere, like the decryption blob, put it somewhere, grab the encryption blob, put it somewhere else, wrap it in some functions, and like call it a DLL, and you're done. And whenever you need it, you just use it. You don't need to understand the encryption and decryption algorithm to be able to use it, right? So yeah, the question is like, what's your goal? If your goal is to do cryptanalysis, there is no easy way. You have to do full reverse engineering of it anyway, because you have to understand it, right? You first do that, then you create, start from like just translate the code into Python or to C, then try to minimize it, like bring it to high level. At the end of the day, you get some math equations basically, or like, some blocks which are saying how it works, and then you can do cryptanalysis on it. That's my take. I do see on the chat, however, there being a couple of cryptographers, so they can disagree and they can also give, and they can also give better hints. What do you think about the increase in malicious malware? Is there a non-malicious malware since C19? I do not have an opinion on that, and I didn't know even there's an increase because I am not working with malware. I haven't been working with malware professionally for over 10 years now, so I am so out of loop. Like, see what Hasherzadeh has to say basically on Twitter. That's usually what I would say if you ask me about malware. Are you going to offer challenges for Dragon CTF? Yes. Any tips to prepare for Dragon CTF? Play other CTFs, like train. I don't think there is anything else you can do. And get a team if you don't have one. Like, CTFs are a team competition. What controls the initial values of registers and stack when first hitting the entry point of an executable? Are they random, or they have a meaning and can be predicted? Good question. Okay, it's like this. It's usually defined by the operating system. If you start reading documentation of the binary interface of the operating system, it's defined what register will have what value. But some of the values are actually defined by saying they are undefined, which means, they will be random. Which isn't true, obviously, because there is no such thing as random values in such scenario. The values are basically what was used before by a function and then was just left in the register, because you don't clear registers, right? There's no reason to do that. And yeah, so that's basically it. On the stack, yeah, it's defined as well. For example, on Linux, on the stack, it's pretty well defined, but at the beginning of the stack, you will have it's called an auxiliary vector, like some values from kernel, including some random values, I think, there, like the stack cookie, the initial stack cookie, I think, is there. I might be mistaken here, though. Then you have environment variables, arguments, and then tables for the main. And yeah, on Windows, it's a little bit different. I don't remember exactly how's it on the Windows. There was some funny thing about it, though. Yeah, that's basically it. Like, you have to take a look in the documentation of the binary interface for the operating system. Alright, so will you continue Pico CTF? Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Ridanos, hello, long time no see. How would you approach to input vectors enumeration in order to reduce reverse engineering efforts in static finding function that process the input from outside? Static? Why did you add static there? This is something I would do dynamically. I'm not sure if I would do it statically. Yeah, because dynamically you just record it, right? You record the execution first without using the function, then with using the function, and then you just like take the nodes which were in the second run but but were not in the first run, and what you get is usually just the function you're looking for. But statically is kind of like well, just data flow tracing, right? So if I would have to do that statically, I would probably try to aim to see how the data flows. Like you can actually simulate it or model it, do a graph out of all the connections. Like you say this is your input, and this is like the disassembly code, and you try to see where the data flows. This is a little bit more complicated due to data when it starts to be processed, then yeah, and it reaches generic functions, and when it starts going through like function pointers, it's a mess there. But I would basically go that way to try to just make a graph out of it. It is not a simple question, by the way. I think there are some tools for it, but I don't have an easy answer, I'm sorry. Any recommendations for someone finishing their studies and looking for work abroad in InfoSec? I'm a bit lost on where to start, and I'm trying to prepare as I'll finish my degree by August 2021. You still have some time, so this is a really well-timed question, I would say. As for recommendations, okay, so the problem is that the market currently, the job market, is absolutely terrible. And yeah, I know quite a lot of smart people looking for work right now, looking for jobs, and it doesn't look well, doesn't look good. On the other hand, a lot of companies are moving for remote work, which is also a good thing when looking for a job. So it kind of also depends on your situation. Like, what do you know, right? What are your skills? Like, what are your skills? If your skills are I don't know, and for example, penetration testing, and you've already done some penetration tests as a freelancer, then like start sending your CV basically to companies right about now, I would say, and tell them that you finished. So now you'll be looking for work. In general, I would advise finding a job before moving to a country rather than moving first and then looking for a job. But depends on the country, but it might be rather hard to do in some cases. I don't think I can say anything apart from that, but yeah, I would start early. Like start looking, especially at the beginning of a year, because some companies function from like calendar year to calendar year. They get assigned open positions, like headcount, basically open headcount on the beginning of a year, and then they gradually hire throughout the year, and near the end of the year they have nothing. So start reaching out to companies around beginning of a year. That might be a little bit better for you. Another two tips are like, if you have somebody who could look at your resume to see if everything is fine, then do that. On the other hand, you also might want to look at my blog post. No, here we go. Oh, no, I don't think I have it there. Let's go to Gunveil Coding here. And there's like how to document your knowledge. This one is like third one from the top. It's basically a list of things you can put in your resume, because if you're just like you're writing your first resume, you might be like have a blank page in your head. Like, what do I put there? Like, okay, school, languages, programming languages I know, technologies I know, and what else? And it looks pretty blank, but do look at this blog post, because there's a list of things you can just go through, and you can take a maybe you did something basically which you think you don't think you could put in a resume, and yeah, it might be on that list. So do take a look at that blog post. Let's go back here. So that's one tip. And the other tip is do mock interviews, meaning if you know somebody in the industry who's already working as a professional and did interviews before for companies, then ask them to do a test interview with you. And not for the job, like you're not applying for a job, but basically to get to familiarize yourself how a job interview looks like, and train, right? Like, especially if you're a little bit more stressed in such situations, do a couple of mock interviews. Then your stress level and an actual real job interview should be a little lower. And it's quite easy to do now, right? Because everyone is using like, I don't know, Google Meet or Hangouts or like Zoom, was it? Yeah. So I think that's all I can say. The Shin writes, hello, by the way. I see a lot of people who are with us for a long time. Amazing to see you, even after this break. Since everything is now being remote, cybersecurity is considered more important than ever. How do you think the field will change with this pandemic? Good question. Okay, there are two things. First of all, I agree. It's more important than ever, and there's a lot more attack surface now than ever because companies suddenly allowed like people to use their own personal computers and to like basically take hardware which was usually in the office to outside of the office, where maybe physical protections aren't so good. So this basically changes the threat models quite a lot for security folk, which also means there's quite a lot of more work for security folk. Now, the problem is that it's also kind of an economical crisis, right? Which means that companies look for ways to maybe not go bankrupt as a company. So they look for, well, basically parts of a company which doesn't generate profit, right? And security isn't about generating profit unless you're a consulting company, obviously. It's about not losing profit, or rather not losing. So yeah, there might be a risk decision that, hey, maybe, that security team of 10 people, maybe 5 is enough. Yeah, and that will be cheaper for the company, and maybe we'll not go bankrupt. So there might be like some business risk analysis decisions in various companies. So that's why the job market for InfoSec right now is super hard, because like economic crisis isn't the greatest for InfoSec. At the end of the day, we are not people who are super needed for a company from a business perspective, right? I'm not saying like from a security perspective, because from a security perspective, InfoSec people are the most important ones, obviously. But from a profit generation perspective and business perspective, yeah, not really. So yeah, I'm quite curious to see also what will be the developments in our field. I don't have any great predictions. That's basically what I observe, but yeah, that's it. Disco, hello. Right, there is an 80 random value in OXV on the stack for ELF programs, and this is the value, but the stack cookie is derived from keyword here. Very nice. One of the bytes is zeroed. Is it zeroed during the derivation, or is it zeroed already in that random value? At least for glibc. If it's derived from, that's great. If it's just copied from, then that's not great. But I think even like in most implementations, like the stack cookies for different threads are on the stack thread of that thread, which isn't the greatest idea either. It's a little bit better in how it's done on Windows, because on Windows every thread has this like TEB, thread environment block, or environmental block, whatever, which contains the cookie for that thread, which is somewhere in the memory but nobody knows where, and it's just accessed via segments. And that's the same on Linux. That being said, the equivalent of thread environment block on Linux is basically just the end of a stack of a given thread. Yeah, which made our job when we were playing with Boxpawn years ago on Linux a little bit easier, but let's not go there. What was sorry, from Deepak Kashav. What was your? I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'm terrible with names. What was your motivation for cybersecurity, and why was your journey? What was your journey into cybersecurity field? Hey, do we have that in FAQ? Because we actually, okay, so folks, if you don't know, we made an FAQ. We actually made a website for our live streams. If you go to ginvale.live, Ginvale Live, like, yeah, quite easy to remember, then FAQ has quite a lot of stuff. And I think I mentioned it somewhere here, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to answer the question. Or maybe I didn't. Anyway, okay, so I always thought I would be a game developer, and when I started really young, right? So yeah, I was learning towards being a game developer. At the end of the day, when I was at my university, or rather before when I was still in high school, I started to be interested with security as well. And then on my university, I started getting some really on a decent level in security, basically. So yeah, and then came the question like, okay, so do I work in game dev or do I work in security? And in game dev, I see crunch time, and in security, I see like pretty decent salaries and pretty okay work. So I said, well, I like both, so it's either, and I'm fine with it. So I went cybersecurity at the end of the day. I did try for a couple of months in game dev, but at the end of the day, I did go for cybersecurity, which I think was a really good choice. And as you can see with for Accelerate, I still get to make games. Same for like Arcane Sector for the Dragon CTF, right? So yeah, and maybe I will be doing even more games after I go to like retire finally someday. Okay. A follow-up to Eridanus Supervoid's question on that, but not statically, or maybe I misunderstood. I've tried to write a program that places a breakpoint at each stack frame. I'm guessing that's actually... okay, sorry, let me just continue reading. At each stack frame in order to record function calls, but it doesn't work well with sandbox process. Oh, sandbox process. That's a world of pain. Can you just disable sandboxing? Like, no, seriously, this is like, I'm fully serious here. Just disable sandboxing for your experiments, unless you really need it. But if you can, do disable sandboxing. That will make it easier, especially that if you're doing security research, you usually don't. Unless you're exploiting the sandboxing, right? Then you can just disable it for tests, why not? And I would go that route. Like, make the sandbox super permissive, allow everything, just disable it, and then do what you've written. Again, you could also try do binary recompilation at the end of the day, or like rewriting, which means basically you grab a binary and then you or you can try with hooking. Like, don't do breakpoints, try with Intel pin or try with DynamoRio. Maybe that will work with, because that's basically, it kind of does dynamic rewriting anyway. Yeah, maybe that will actually allow you to do what you want with sandbox processed. Instead of doing the debugger way, the breakpoint way, try the Intel pin way with hooking, or DynamoRio way with whatever DynamoRio does is pretty magic actually. Okay, Saurav Kumar writes, do you know someone personally who is all-rounder in CTFs? Should someone try to get better at CTFs or join a good team? Okay, good question. So, but depends how you define all-rounder, right? I mean, I can solve almost any category for 300 points, right? But there are only a couple of categories like web reversing, pawn, which I go beyond 300 points. So yeah, I would say that a lot of people I know are like that. Like 300, throw a 300 point task at them and they will just solve it. Like regardless, crypto, sure. Like reverse engineering, no problem. Forensics, sure, no reason to worry. And then they are like specializing in 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 categories. So yeah, I would say like specialize, but also do have general knowledge. Like general knowledge at some level and specialization at some like way higher level. Should someone try to get better at CTFs? Yes and no. It's okay. Remember that for a lot of people, being good at CTFs it's a net product of their actually working in security and being really good in security, right? So they are good in CTFs because they are already good in security, in programming and hacking and so on. It's not like they focus only on CTFs and don't care about anything other. So yeah, but if your main motivation is CTFs, then absolutely try to get better at CTFs, because why not? You will learn something and you can use it in the real world anyway. Not one-to-one maybe, but quite a lot of the hands-on stuff you learn and the technologies you learn are absolutely useful in the real world. Now, should you join a good team? Yeah, like, yeah, why not? Like, you will learn quite a lot of stuff from your teammates, so do that. So it's like same with game clans, right? You join one clan, then you might switch to another, a better one when you grow your skills and so on. Like, that's fine. Adam writes, can socket listen on one thread, meanwhile sending data on the other thread, or should I lock the socket in multi-threading? Okay, you cannot listen and send data on the same socket. Like, a socket is either listening or it's connected and can exchange data. Like, when you create a server, right, you create a listening socket, which is accepting connections, but that socket, once a connection is accepted, actually a new socket is created, like a new socket which has the connection. And this socket can send data, can receive data. This socket cannot. So yeah, so basically, like, that's a problem I have with your question, right? That you cannot use, technically you cannot use the same socket for both things because it's impossible, because a listening socket does not send any data. Now, if you're asking if, like, could you, like, send data on one socket in one thread and on the same socket receive data in another thread? Yeah, sure. That's a pretty typical thing I do actually in my projects. I usually have 2 threads per socket, one for sending, one for receiving. And there are multiple better ways to do it, but it's sometimes really, really convenient to do it that way. And you do not have to lock it. You do not have to basically lock sockets unless... Okay, the problem begins if you want to receive data from a socket in 2 different threads. Basically, and then you want to do... Should you lock that socket? No, you shouldn't lock it, because you should never operate on the same socket simultaneously in 2 different threads, because like, everything will go wrong. That will not work. That will not work because, like, they will get each other's data. Instead, what you do, you have one thread which is receiving the data and putting the data in a queue. And then you can have multiple threads which are getting the already ready to go packets, not data stream, just packets, from that queue. That's the usual way you would do it. And that's fine to do it that way. Yard writes, what are most important things you are looking for when moving to another employer? Good question. Okay, I'm with the current company for over 10 years, right? So I'm not switching too frequently. Though I did have a couple of interviews with various companies in the meantime. So the main question I ask myself is, like, is that change going to be better? I'm quite happy with my job. Should I actually just go to a different company because I will be happier then? Happier might mean different things to different people. Will, for example, my salary be better? Will I be able to work on more interesting projects? Will I be able to publish stuff? Will I be able to learn stuff from really, really amazing people? So yeah, and also, like, how much red tape is in the other company. And red tape, by red tape I mean basically paperwork, right? If you want to do, I don't know, if I want to publish a paper, how many reviews, approvals, and so on do I have to get? Is it easy to get it? Is it like just my manager saying, yeah, sure, like, just publish it? Or do I have to go, like, through lawyer review, PR review, and so on and so forth? So these would be the questions I would ask. And also, like, one way of getting a promotion is usually, from jumping, for example, from a regular software engineer to a senior software engineer is by changing companies. So the question is, like, am I going to like, climbing in the ladder, or do I stay at the same, or maybe do I fall? And yeah, and then you kind of think, like, what's important for you. If, for example, I would be really unhappy with my current company due to reasons, I might accept a job which has lower salary. I'm on a lower, like, I don't know, I'm not even a senior there, but like, the atmosphere is, for example, amazing, right? So it really depends on your position. Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know, yeah, these are my thoughts. Again, I'm not really switching companies left, right, and center, so I do not have too many thoughts here, but that's what I usually think about. Thank you for the donation. Jasminder? Just a question. Okay, as I said, like the animations are disabled because YouTube quota. We'll fix it later. How to connect address sanitizer with Chromium builds to track crashes? No idea, because I honestly, the last time I did browser research was around 2013, so I don't know. I'm pretty sure there are ways, but what I would do if I would want to do that, I would start looking at presentations from Chrome security people or people who are working on Chrome. Like there are quite a lot of presentations from folks like that on various conferences. So I would go there and see, because maybe somebody showed how to do that. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure there is a way to just rebuild Chrome. So it's like this. You don't connect ASAN to something. You rebuild something with ASAN because ASAN needs to be compiled in. Because it does basically instrumentation at compilation time. So you have to rebuild something with ASAN. And yeah, I would look for builds of Chrome, or Chromium actually in this case, which do have ASAN already built in. And then when you have that, then you do have to set some environment variables basically to enable ASAN. It's like ASAN options, something, I don't remember. Yeah, that's all I can say. Ipsec, hello. What is the silver thing next to your bookshelf? Silver thing next to my bookshelf. It's right over my... Okay, which shelf is that? If you could tell me, like, which shelf? Is it closer to the light thingy, or is it closer to this? Like, the only silver thing which I have is like this, which my finger is basically at, and that's just a cupboard? No, how's it called? My English doesn't work. Wardrobe. What's a wardrobe? It's not technically a wardrobe because we have some like photo equipment, other stuff there, but whatever. Oh, you mean the glass thingy? Like this? I don't think you could read anything, but I could show you. It's an award we got for being the top team in 2000. Yeah, it's an award for 2014 best score on CTF time. So basically being, yeah, like top one in CTF time in 2014. There were some folks from a conference which were giving out these prizes, which was super absolutely amazing. But I think they did it only for that year. Maybe when I retire from CTFs, I should do that as well. But that would be actually really cool to like recognize some amazing players and like amazing tasks from CTFs and so on and so forth. Have you seen Serenity OS? Oh, what's Serenity OS? Okay. Graphical Unix-like operating system for... Okay. I do not know that. Sorry, let me maybe show you it here, if I still have my browser opened. Here we go. Okay. Is it... Wow, it's pretty... Still somebody uses it. This looks so old school. Okay, that's amazing. I didn't know about it. Thank you for sending it. I'm just like absolutely bookmarking this. That's amazing. So yeah, I guess that also answers your question. I didn't use it. Have you used time travel debugging? I actually written my engineer's thesis about that. But was, yeah, oh man, 15 years ago-ish. So yeah, I was always a big fan of that. But I don't use it too much, in honesty. I used it only a couple of times. There is quite a lot of things you can do having the difference between each cycle of an application. You can derive quite a lot of information from that. And also just moving around, if you have a good interface like Kira, for example, that was made by GeoHot, right? That was a pretty amazing way to use time travel debugging. Yeah, if you have that, then you can do a lot of exploitation work easier. It's not really super needed for debugging, but per se, right? But for exploitation and exploit debugging, yeah, absolutely, that's pretty great. So I'm a fan of it. I would love to have more time to actually work a little bit more on it, but it's also not something which is super useful unless you really go for exploit development, I would say. And I'm not sure there are like really good tools for that. How's my driving license? I see this one like on chat just now. Slowly forward. I had to do a break for a month due to crunch time, and then due to me having a cold. But apart from that, I'm getting slowly a hang of it and starting to eye dates for the second attempt at the exam. Yeah, driving lessons or driving licenses in Switzerland are hardcore, basically. I have, I don't know, like about 70 hours right now on my, like on the record, which I would say in Poland, after 30 hours, it's pretty normal to pass the exam. Here I had about like 40-ish, and I didn't pass the exam, and I still felt I have a lot to learn. And I grabbed a second teacher who is absolutely amazing in basically like explaining theory and in a structured way, like applied theory. That's not like theory, that's applied theory. Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. Anyway, so yeah, I've learned a lot through the next several months, and now I'm starting to eye the next exam. And I do expect COVID to actually lock everything down before I have a chance to go for the exam. This is absolutely amazing how COVID and the pandemic and the lockdowns like moved everything related to my driving due to you know, like nobody was able to drive, but still new people were interested in it. So suddenly the teachers were fully booked, and I got like one lesson every week and so on. Then yeah, exams were cancelled and so on and so forth. So everything was like shifted by half a year basically. I do like driving though; it's really fun. Yeah. Disconnected writes, oh, the stack cookie is copied from @random, and the first byte is zeroed to mitigate cases with string copy. Okay, so the deviation here is just like nulling a byte. Yeah, I know about the... what did I analyze that I actually had to look at this in detail? I don't remember. But yeah, the null byte is quite cute in the cookie. I'm not sure it helps a lot, but it's quite cute. I would say that like in 64 bits that's fine. In 32 bits I wasn't too sure about like actually like wasting one full byte, 8 bits to zero it to prevent then null, well, any copying which requires a null byte, right? Like any exploitation which was rather problematic if you would have a null byte. Oh well. Or like, yeah, to prevent copying the cookie. That's also fair. Okay, Yusuf writes, what kind of jobs can a reverse engineer do other than malware analysis? Yeah, malware analysis is the obvious one. Apart from that, there isn't too much. Well, first of all, you can do reverse engineering for game localization. Usually, you do get like some language files for the game and like the graphics, where you just change the graphics, right? But there are some publishers and so on, at least that's what I've been told, that just don't want to share the like the, for example, ways to edit an image. So what you have to do is you have to like reverse the game to figure out how to decode and then encode an image. And this is especially true for games, for older games. If you want to, for example, grab a game from 2005 and like make a new edition in your language, well, there's a pretty big chance that whoever developed the game doesn't exist anymore. So all the publisher has is like some build files, and yeah, you just have to help the translators be able to do their job. So that's one thing. The other thing is, from time to time, some company is looking for a reverse engineer because they bought a software which is super important and they need to do some changes, but the companies they bought the software from, well, doesn't exist, and they or exists but has no capability to do the changes. So yeah, they are looking for somebody who is able to just grab the binary, do the changes, and apply that. But this is more like a, I don't think you can be work in that full time. Apart from that, well, it's useful in security, obviously, right? It's one of the tools in vulnerability research if but it's just a tool, right? You need to know about security anyway. But it's a useful tool in vulnerability research when dealing with binaries. On top of that, I do not know, actually. Well, I would say that's it. There might be some other stuff, though, but if anyone on the chat has a better idea, right. Where do you learn new stuff? Everywhere. I'm not joking. What I mean is that I use all resources possible and available to me, which usually means Googling, okay? Yeah, sometimes it means watching a video or two on YouTube and to get a hang or something, to get an idea behind something, high-level idea usually, then documentation, usually downloading source code and analyzing it. I don't know, if I would learn Ruby or something right now, I just download Ruby interpreter and start reading through it to kind of get the concepts which are underneath. It's a weird way to learn, but yeah, I'm pretty used to it. Almost never books. I have a lot of books, but I almost never learned from them. There are exceptions, a couple of exceptions, but that's it. Tutorials, sometimes, yeah. Example source code on GitHub especially, sometimes. I think that's mostly it. Do you ever feel you're falling behind with knowledge of the industry? New tools, news, books. There's a ton of that. How do you deal with that? This is an absolutely amazing question. Yes, all the time, but I'm used to it. So it's like this. My take on things is that I do not usually jump on the new things immediately. For various reasons. First of all, I would be just constantly jumping between stuff, right? On the other hand, if I give a topic a year or two, then after 2 years, I kind of know if it's something that will stick and stay around for a while. For example, Node.js, I didn't jump on Node.js after it came out, but now I'm pretty familiar with Node.js. I've written quite a lot of code for it. So yeah, so I wait, I see if it sticks around, then I learn it. That's basically my idea, and I am always behind the curve due to that. But that's okay. The industry isn't changing so dramatically that I have to be if I'm more than a month behind, I'm just fall out. I can be a couple of years behind, that's fine. So that's one thing. Is there any other thing? No, I'd say that's it. One difference is my area of expertise, my specialty. In my specialties, I try to be on the edge, basically. On the edge, that's not the idiom I'm looking for. I basically try to be up to date with all the developments, so I follow them as well as I can. But that's only for my short, really small area of things I specialize in. Yeah. And everything else is yeah, it can wait. So I don't worry too much about it. On the other hand, if you fall behind 10 years, then that starts to be problematic. I sometimes For example, I refresh JavaScript for myself usually every 6-7 years, I would say. I sit a little bit more with JavaScript. If that would be 10 years, I would be a little bit too behind, I think. Are you familiar with move semantics in C++? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so move semantics, long story short, is like, I'm going to quickly explain what's the idea behind it, because it's super easy. Let's draw on these people. So you have an object which basically has a pointer to some huge chunk of data. This is huge chunk of data, right? And then you have another object, and you basically want to move this huge chunk of data, which is pointed to by this object. From this object, you want to move it here. So the move semantics, what it does basically is it doesn't move, like, copy this stuff. It just basically nulls this pointer and creates, makes this pointer point to it. This is the move semantics. This is all it does. It might look scary, but this is basically all it does. And yeah, so if you have a specific question, do let me know. But at the end of the day, there we go. It's a pretty useful thing to have it. Also, we do have KrzaQ on our chat, who is absolutely a C++ expert, way better than me, and I'm pretty sure we can, well, I can redirect any question to him, but I cannot answer. And say that, yeah, KrzaQ is on the chat, he can answer, easy. Malik writes, do you know any techniques, resources to statically reverse engineer native graphical user interface applications like Qt, GTK+, etc.? Goals are: render your UI statically without running the app to find event handling functions. Wow, this is amazing. No, I do not know anything like that. Rendering statically a UI without the application running is like this. It's both trivial and hard depending on the scenario. It might be trivial because a lot of graphical user interfaces are just defined in like separate data structures, like the resources for executables, like the RC section. When there are like editors which you can just point it to an executable and the editor will show you, yeah, it looks like this. And it might be similar for Qt, GTK+, I have no idea actually. I would look if that's possible. If the interface is created dynamically, programmatically, it's a little bit more problematic, especially if you have variables there. So I don't know anything like that. The second point, by the way, find event handling functions. That should be pretty easy. Yeah, this should be pretty easy, depending on how exactly it works, but this sounds like just going through the graph of function calls of like specific functions and trying to see what are the parameters for the given function. It depends on the graphical user interface library, how would you exactly do that, but that sounds doable. I would basically, yeah, again, I would look for functions which allow you to define like for example, attach an event to a button. If you find that function, you basically get the handler for free. Okay, I'm going to go one from the chat, from Irani. Hello, what happened to paged out? My crunch time happened to page out. I apologize. I do have plans from the middle of November, or maybe after the Dragon CTF, to go back to paged out, and yeah, there will be issue 3, issue 4, and so forth. Don't worry about it. It was just delayed. A lot. What's the typical work of a security researcher? Well, basically, depending on what you research, right? Typical work would be looking for vulnerabilities and at the same time looking for new ways to find vulnerabilities and new ways to exploit vulnerabilities and new ways to mitigate vulnerabilities. That's basically the idea. What kind of jobs can reverse engineering do? Oh, we already answered this one. How does one start with pwning? I have programming experience in C, C++, but I find it tough getting started with pwning. Okay, start with learning reverse engineering and assembly. Like, you will not get anywhere if you don't know reverse engineering and assembly, including dynamic reverse engineering using a debugger. So yeah, start with that. After you start with that, pawning should be pretty easy. Because pawning is basically like operating on assembly level. Yeah. Specialize in pawn or reverse engineering, and why? Specialize in what you like. Reverse engineering is needed for pawn anyway, so I would say like specialize in reverse engineering, and then when you're really good at it, switch to pawn, and you will have 2 categories covered. But yeah, like reverse engineering is the first natural step. Sava writes, what is the best way to get into kernel hacking programming? Usually when learning something I try to code, but I don't know what. Driver, module, what exactly? Good question, yeah, but I agree with your statement. When I started with it, I also started with writing some drivers. Like, what kind of drivers? Like a hello world driver is an obvious one. But then, yeah, then it depends what operating system you're working for and so on. What you can do, what I would suggest is like write a driver which exposes you some functions which grab information from the kernel. You basically do direct kernel object manipulation, as in actually grabbing data from kernel structures and, well, sending it to user applications. Yeah, I would suggest that as what kind of drivers. Apart from that, I don't have any great ideas because I never spent too much time in that area, so I'm going to leave it here. Do you use custom disassembly tools, for example, Capstone? If yes, for which purpose? Yeah, from time to time. I don't remember what I used Capstone last time for, but usually for like when I'm doing some weird Python stuff with binaries, I use Capstone to so I can just debug stuff, as in get a piece of code and tell Capstone hey, what is this piece of code, and it will output it. I usually use it in tandem with Unicorn, the emulation engine. One of the most used tool that uses a custom disassembler was, well, a Rob Gadget Finder, obviously. I have a custom one, but I know there are a lot of good ones, but I like having custom stuff. And apart from that, I think one of the uses of disassembly engines which I saw was when we were working with Annewout on Syndicate Wars project. It was basically a project to get a DOS game and then recompile it to Windows, Mac, and Linux, which worked at the end of the day. And what Annewout did back then was basically he took a disassembly engine from NetWeight Assembler, I think, and basically convinced it to output code, disassembled code, which could be easily you just put it in an assembler and it will work. The syntax was proper, everything was fine, and you could recompile it with an assembler. So that was a pretty good usage of it, I would say. Okay, we already went with this one. Are you working on any particular product in Google? No, I'm working in a security team. I'm the lead for, rather, manager/lead for an internal vulnerability research team. How many of your 2020 plans did you achieve so far? Nice one. Don't rub it in. This year is terrible. Okay, yeah, a lot of plans which I had initially were basically are delayed a lot. I did achieve some stuff. I'm really happy with Accelerate work. I'm really happy with a couple of other things I did, but everything else was delayed. So I don't know. I'm going to say less than half, and I'm still pretty happy with the result. Do you still run a game dev challenge? No, I stopped doing that some time ago due to timing constraint, I think, mostly. I don't know if... I don't think I'm going to do a a constrained game development challenge anymore, but maybe we could do some game challenge sometime in the future, maybe. On the other hand, there are like so many game challenges running and game jams running every week right now, but I'm not sure if it makes sense to do another one. Like, just look for like game jams, and there's a nice website with a calendar, and there's like literally multiple running at the same time. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the t-shirt is amazing. It's you know, the one of the two most known jokes in security. Obviously, I needed a t-shirt, but I did misclick. I do need to find the question now. Okay, Mali writes, given a complex function, for example, 10,000 basic blocks, wow, in x86 assembly, how would you reverse engineer that without a decompiler? I think the decompiler would just sit down and cry seeing 10,000 basic blocks. It's a good question. But depends. Is it like 10,000 basic blocks of obfuscated code? Or is it just a function which is so like hilariously large? In the first case, I would try to figure out if there's a way to make the function like tell me what it actually does, and maybe there's a way to get rid of some of the blocks, like just throw it in a optimizer, right? Like, I don't know, change it to some intermediate language like LLVM IL, and then throw it to the optimizers. And the optimizers might do pretty good work of getting rid of all the dead code, all the like optimizing some stuff. So that's one thing I could try. On the other hand, if that's actually like a function like that, then if I really need to disassemble it, reverse engineer it, I would start out like which basic blocks are related to what, and then go like to get a high level picture of that, and then start going maybe one by one. But I'm not sure if I would really be interested in reverse engineering every block, right? Kind of depends. But I would try to avoid digging too deep into it unless that's unavoidable. What is better for deep learning, TensorFlow or PyTorch? I have absolutely no idea because I didn't do AI for a long time. Any ideas for bachelor thesis, like something simple but not implemented well yet? No ideas. I know I get a lot of questions about like ideas for masters and bachelor's theses and engineering degrees and so on, but I don't know. Usually, like when somebody asks that, my mind is blank. Yeah, so I don't know. Sorry, I don't have good ideas. Bleeding edge. Who cares? Thank you. You are absolutely amazing. Bleeding edge. That was the idiom I was looking for. Okay, the worst programming book you have read. Yeah, the problem is I don't read too many books. I'm pretty sure the book I learned assembly from wasn't the greatest, though. First of all, because they used debug.com as an assembler, and second of all, because I'm pretty sure they had issues in the instruction table which made me misunderstand a couple of instructions, like a couple of key instructions. So yeah, I'm not going to point names at that book, but yeah. That was a really old book, though. How many Macs do you own? That's a new one. I don't know, like, how many Macs do normal people own? I don't know. Literally 30 maybe? Like, Lucas writes, isn't the move semantic something just like the borrow memory management in Rust? I do not know Rust, so I maybe not. I do not know Rust. If anyone on the channel actually knows Rust, please answer that question. Thank you. Atta writes, how does end-to-end encryption, I guess? how does end-to encryption, I'm guessing it's like end-to-end encryption, works in terms of key generation. Well, I mean, you can do a key exchange, right? Like Diffie-Hellman and stuff. There are algorithms for exchanging keys without reviewing the keys in the process. So yeah, like just look at like KrzaQ algorithms, like key exchange algorithms. I'm pretty sure like end-to-end encryption can just use that. Okay, I already answered this one. Yeah, page out will come. Like, don't worry, it's not cancelled or anything. We have a lot of articles, we have a lot of plans. It's not cancelled, it's just delayed. Please share some essential points for effective CTF challenges. Are you thinking about making effective CTF challenges? A good CTF challenge, in my opinion, is a CTF challenge which is, you know, almost from the get-go what you have to do, but it's technically challenging. Plus, the challenge is well tested. Please note that the first point basically says it's not guessing. There's no guessing at all, almost no guessing at all, right? Educated guessing is fine. But yeah, like people just see, oh, I have to do like, after like, I don't know, 10-minute analysis, they say, oh, I have to do this, 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 and this. And yeah, and then it takes them like 5 hours to do it. That's a good challenge in my opinion. Yeah, obviously like this, and this might include something like, oh, I have to reverse engineer a function to understand how it, I don't know, generates a random number, which takes 2 hours or something. That's fine. But that's not guessing, right? And no guessing allowed, basically. Apart from, again, educated guessing is fine, but like guessing which... So guessing is a funny term, right? If it's something obvious that everyone in security knows, that's kind of allowed. But if you have to, I don't know, guess the name of an endpoint, then no, that's absolutely not allowed. Do not go there. Well tested, this is key. And yeah, like going the guessy route, you probably don't want to create challenges which are data steganography. File format steganography, sure, no problem. Data steganography, like, you know, data somewhere embedded in an image data or like in sound data, don't go there. If it's data embedded in a image file format, like somewhere in the structures or not in the image data itself, the image data stays identical to the original, but the format itself, that's absolutely fine. But there's no guessing there. But yeah, if you embed data with like data steganography, then that's really guessy. And recon OS int challenges, no, don't do that. Because they are super guessy and usually they're detached from the real world, or they use services which are public. And it was, there were cases like on large CTFs where first teams found the flag in some, I don't know, comment on YouTube, but the teams that found it actually also reported the comment, so the comment was removed, and other teams didn't find the flag. And if you either make a super artificial OSINT/recon challenge, or you actually have to use public services, and you risk that a third party will just remove your flag. What do you think about bug bounties? They're cool. I like them. I don't do too many bug bounties, but I do know bug bounties from both sides. Both from like Google Vulnerability Reward Program. I was with it from the moment it started, basically. And for a couple of years, I then moved out of it. And from like somebody who was reporting bounties. Yeah, it's fun. I'm not sure, not convinced about, is it like a way of living? I know some people do live only doing bug bounties. It would be a little bit too stressful maybe for me to not have a... on the other hand, I wouldn't do only bug bounties. But yeah, like, apart from that, yeah, it's fun. I do remember that, yeah, but like, obviously every bug bounty has its own set of rules, and if you report a bug through bug bounty, you have to comply with these rules. That being said, if you're a security researcher, you might want to just get the bug fixed, and you ignore the bug bounties in that case. You will not have a bounty paid out, but you make sure that a bug is fixed. So yeah, there's like pros and cons everywhere. But that depends on the bug bounty. I mean, yeah, Google is fine, but there are some companies who are like, yeah, if you report it through bug bounty, you cannot disclose anything for 5 years, and yeah. So I'm obviously exaggerating, but that's the intention. Sorry, as I said, I have a little cold. What would you say is the Bible of binary exploitation? I don't know. Like years ago, like there was like the Shellcoder's Handbook and some other books about hacking, but I don't know if new editions came out and things changed. Security is going forward, including low-level security, so I'm not sure if there is any up-to-date book. There might be up-to-date books, I just don't know them. But it's hard to say at this point. Did you work on Cicada or Tengri? No, maybe someday. I really like the idea. Maybe someday I'll have time to play with that. These are like these puzzle hacking IT, well, not competitions, like puzzle things, which are really related to real world. And there's like the whole mystery. Nobody knows who does it, and so on. It's really fun. I like it, but I didn't play with it. One I played with was like a billboard in. I spotted or somebody spotted. I think somebody spotted and sent me a link. Somewhere in Wrocław in Poland, a billboard with assembly code, and that's it. Like nothing more, just assembly code. And yeah, after you started like reversing it, it turned out to be like you get a link which led somewhere where there were like and so on and so forth. But it started in the real world from a billboard with assembly. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I'd like to do something like that. Like maybe someday in my life, like to organize something like that. That would be fun. Okay, have you ever tried Linux as main OS? Yeah, a couple of times. In what was it? 96, I think. Then when I was on the university, I was using it as my main operating system. Then a couple of years later as well. Then at work for some time. Apart from stability issues and lack of total commander, it wasn't bad. But I saw that like double commander currently works almost identically to total commander. So maybe my main reason to stick with Windows is going away slowly. Yeah, apart from stability issues and issues with games and like lack of software drivers for, well, actually drivers for like mouse, keyboard, you know, the gamer style stuff where you can like tweak the DPI and so on. It's pretty cool. I always liked Linux. Yeah. If I would have to switch from Windows to Linux, I will not cry. Like really. It's like, it's a good operating system. Just personal preference why I'm on Windows. What do you think is the roadmap of learning a system's internals? That's a huge question. Yeah, like a roadmap is... The question is basically like, could I quickly draw a roadmap? No. Roadmaps are hard to make. I would start with like just reading a book about that operating system's internals, if possible. There is one about OS X, like Mac OS. There is one about Windows internals, obviously. There are some older books about Linux. And basically trying hands-on with everything which is written on the book. Later on is that kind of depends why do you want to learn system internals, right? But maybe... No, it's... Yeah, I don't have any great answers here, I'm sorry. It is a really good question, I don't have answers, so... Something that one really like the main questions here, what's the goal, right? Why are you learning system internals? Are you learning it because it's fun? Are you learning it because you want to hack at it? Or like do vulnerability research? Yeah, why? When you're looking for a vulnerability in a new project, how do you approach the project in order to find potentially buggy code areas? I would say like play with the project a bit, like just, you know, click around it to see what's there. That would be the first idea. Then randomly browse through the code. The idea here is to just like get a feeling of it. And after this recon phase, as I would normally call it, I would go and start thinking about attack vectors, like what do they have to protect against, what is the threat model. Not like, like an actual threat model document, right? Like super serious and super official, but rather like, okay, like it's a server-side application and it actually like works on 3 servers, and these 2 servers don't have access to the internet, or rather the internet doesn't have access to them. So like I do have to go through the main server, and can I go physically to one of the servers and play with it? No, not in a thread model. Okay, so like think about that way. Then I would go for enumerating the vectors, like what input vectors there are, how can I interact with the system. And this might be like some APIs for web stuff, some like forms and so on and so forth. Maybe if I'm going after client vulnerabilities on the web, there would be some, I don't know, like single page application stuff, or JavaScript, which is taking input from places which the attacker can reach. So I would try to enumerate that, and then I would start digging into, ideally I should, after doing that, and this is a living list, I would update it throughout the whole project. I should kind of sort it by the impact. And, well, the impact cross risk, right? Because there might be something which has huge impact, but is like, yeah, like nobody is going to do that because 10 years of research. But there might be like some lower impact vulnerability, which is super high risk because it's like a stable code execution or something. So yeah, like sort it and then start digging deep into each and every one of them, one by one, but really deep. And updating it as I go with new information. I think that's how I would go. Like input vectors are the most important things here. So that's one thing. Also, go to my like FAQ. If you go again to FAQ, there's something like at the end, very end, how do you find bugs and vulnerabilities? Look at this. I did describe like 3 different methods there. It's not really an answer to your question, but you might still be interested in taking a look. It's on ginveil.live. Okay. Any chance to catch up to some extent with the top CTF teams like Dragon Sector? Yeah, I think this year like we're kinda not playing a lot because like no offline finals to travel to, so yeah, 2020 isn't the greatest, is it? Even if I spent 2 years on it, it's an endless loop, and in my opinion, such people are not to be overtaken. Okay, so it's like this. Remember that like Dragon Sector is made of people who were playing CTFs in like 15 years ago, okay? Like I was playing, the first CTFs I played was around 2003. So yeah, like, and quite a lot of people in Dragon Sector actually are the same. So do take into account that, like, don't worry, there are people with who do have some experience and they put years, literally years into it. But you can always overtake them, either because they like just go and do other stuff, or because you get better. And after a couple of years, if you spend a couple of years on it, you can catch up. But get a team. Like, CTFs are not individual competitions. You play as a team. You learn from each other. You exchange knowledge. You also analyze basically the stuff. And remember that CTFs is a competition in security, but there is also like quite a lot of other security stuff which you should probably do. And when you do that, security and programming actually, then you become better on CTFs, because you bring the knowledge from the other areas to the CTFs as well, and you bring the knowledge from CTFs to the other areas. That's how it works. That's why we play CTFs. So, yeah, and 2 years isn't a long time at the end of the day. I know it sounds, especially if you're kind of new to the industry, like 2 years is like, wow. But no, like 2 years isn't a long time, that's fine. Just keep at it. And get a really good team. And yeah, don't be afraid to switch teams to better teams, because yeah, like that's where you learn, right? And that's where you well, sometimes you have to do that for your own development. Do you like working from home, or do I prefer from the office? I do prefer from home. I like the office. It's pretty cool. I like working from home, mostly because I have slightly better equipment. Which is a weird thing to say, but yeah, like at the end of the day. And slightly better equipment does mean more monitors. At the end of the day, in the office we had like smaller desks, so I couldn't put a lot of monitors there, and I really enjoy my desktop space. So yeah, here I actually have now 4 monitors, and when we were doing Accelerate I had 7, and I was still missing some, so that was fun. Any tips on exploiting JSON and jQuery in CTFs? I don't think you... Okay, so I'm not sure about the JSON itself. If you're going after like the JWT tokens and some other stuff, maybe I could say something there. But going for jQuery, it kind of depends on the challenge. There aren't too many weird things in jQuery which are immediately obviously exploitable. If you're looking for client-side vulnerabilities, you might look for is the input from what the attacker controls, which is usually like what is after the hash in the URL, and maybe some other things, and then it's being parsed by JavaScript code and put like as HTML to jQuery. This is what you're looking for, basically, like ways to inject JavaScript. That's one thing. Another thing, which is pretty jQuery specific, is that if somebody does an AJAX call and you control what the server responds with, especially the content type, I'm not sure it's needed, but I think that's true as well, then you can actually tell the server, hey, could you actually reply with a content type, I think application JavaScript, and then JavaScript, and I'm pretty sure jQuery will execute the JavaScript. Unless somebody specified that the request is going to be JSON, then yeah, otherwise jQuery will start to do content sniffing, and if it finds JavaScript, it will just execute it. It was on some CTFs. So yeah, let's leave it here. Did you read Practical Binary Analysis by Dennis Andriesa? Practical Binary Analysis. This sounds familiar. I have it on my shelf. I didn't read it though. I just have it on my shelf. Maybe I should take a look. Okay, I already answered this one. Have you read the C programming language? Any thoughts? For me, it made me like C more than C++. I do have it, I believe. I was looking at it a few days ago. Here we go. That's a pretty old book, by the way. Yeah, the 2nd edition, by the way. This is the, like, C didn't have a standard specification. This book was the standard specification, basically, for it. I don't think I read this one. What I read was the actual... No, I think I read it, but I read it as in form of a approved specification, approved standard. I'm not sure it would make me like C more than C++. I like both, but I do prefer C++ because it's actually, well, less verbose at the end of the day. Like, you write less code to achieve the same which you achieve in C. Yeah, but like both languages, and C and C++ actually went a pretty long way from what's described in this book. So the new standards are pretty, yeah, like way more feature heavy, I would say, than the older ones. Yeah, the one thing I like, which is in, I think it should be in this book. Let me take a quick look. It should be in the appendixes. Appendix C, summary of changes. No. Maybe they added it in the standard later. Oh, the official grammar. This is nice. Yeah, I think they added later. Actually, what I like, yeah, they added later, it's not in this book. What I like about the C specification is that they actually have like all the undefined behaviors and implementation defined behaviors and unspecified behaviors written down as appendixes at the end of the standard, and that's not present in C++ standard. But that's a difference in the standards, not in the not in the languages, obviously. Stanley writes, which source could you recommend to learn about networking, especially about how routing works? The books which have been recommended to me are this TCP/IP Illustrated Volume 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, I heard good things about it. I didn't read this specifically. I learned a different book when I was on my university, like from cover to cover about TCP/IP basically. And I would recommend doing that. Like, just go through one book. Apart from that, you might think about like playing with some routers or doing like exercises from Cisco or something like that, like CCNA or something. Because then you are getting a little bit more hands-on. Or you can set up like, I don't know, like 10 virtual machines and set up networking between them. Or 10 Raspberry Pis with a router, I guess, a smart router. Depending on what are your capabilities and your funds, I guess. But yeah, but ask somebody who's in networking, because I know how network works, that's about it, and I only know the client protocols, meaning like, yeah, TCP/IP, Ethernet, and so on. But if you start asking me about how like the protocols which are between routers work, like what STP and other stuff like BGP, I have absolutely no idea. So I learned about it, but it was a long time ago. What do you think about doing smart contracts vulnerability research? Ask Life Overflow that question, because I have no idea about it, and I know he knew something about it. Ibrahim writes, is there any way to scan hosts beyond NAT or yeah? No. Unless you get a foothold in the network somehow, then no. And a foothold might be like you pwn somebody, or like a client connects to your website. And then from JavaScript, from that client, sometimes you can do network scanning. It's not, you cannot do almost anything apart from figuring out if a port is open, I think, but yeah, I think that's it, unless the NAT is really misconfigured in some way. But the problem is addressing. It's not even the problem of like a firewall preventing it. The problem is addressing. Like, how do you actually tell what you want to scan? How do you sniff a traffic on WebSocket server? On the client it's easy, right? Because on the client you just open DevTools and there's like WebSocket there. On the server, depends on the server, which server you're using. You can absolutely use Wireshark for unencrypted connections, but usually WebSocket is over encrypted connection. In that case, well, if you have the server just like instrumented to output you the data. But apart from that, I don't have any, well, and again, like if you have Wireshark, if you have the keys, then you can just sniff it normally. I don't think there are any other methods, and I don't think I would actually look for other methods. I think this is enough to work with it. What's your monitor setup? Sorry. I have basically 4 monitors, like 2 in front of me, 1 up, 1 down, and 1 on the left, 1 on the right. And that's So that's like from this perspective, all of them are 24 inches, 1080p, and 3 of them are connected through one wire through a DisplayPort using MST, which is basically daisy chaining the monitors. And the other one, which is a gaming monitor, like 180 Hertz or something, is connected through a DisplayPort cable. Yeah. Which is actually, I really like it because the 3 monitors which I have on a single cable, if I just like click on it, it starts getting input from my laptop, and then all 3 monitors switch to my laptop, which is absolutely like super convenient at times. Yeah, like DisplayPort and the ability to just like connect multiple monitors with one cable is that's a really, I don't know who invented it, but it's a really good idea. What do you think about code property graph based code analysis, especially applied to, okay, what's code property graph? I have no idea what's that. Or rather, I probably know what's that, and I probably didn't know the name. I'm looking at pictures. That looks like an AST edge. Oh, okay. Semantic code property graph and security profiles. There seems to be some research on this. But, okay, at the end of the day, is like this. If you can use something for reverse engineering or security purposes, then do it. And I know that, like, for example, Semel, the company behind lgtm.com, where you write basically long queries which operate on these kind of graphs, you could find quite a lot of vulnerabilities that way. Okay, it took quite a long time to actually write a query for the graphs they had, because we were using multiple graphs, including like taint tracking graphs and so on. But yeah, and using it for binaries is a little bit harder, I would say. But yeah, I like the idea. That being said, I rarely need to use such fancy scientific techniques while looking for vulnerabilities. But looking forward to any papers you release about it. Have you ever encountered a malware that disables CPU fan without notifying the BIOS to overheat the CPU to cause hardware damages? So I don't think this would actually cause hardware damage, because the CPUs have built-in safe measures. They would just turn off the computer and turn off the CPU. I have not. And this would be pretty hard to do, but I think possible. Yeah, it might be possible to even like increase the voltage a little bit here and there. But I have not found any malware like that ever. That does not mean it does not exist. There were pretty nasty viruses back in the day, which basically reflashed your BIOS and broke your BIOS. So without like reflashing the BIOS again, your motherboard was basically broken. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. No more questions. That's good. If I missed a question, please let me know. Other than that, I think we are fine to finish, like 2 hours already, almost. Oh, hello. Wow, quite a lot of people today. Hello, how are you? So I'm going to do a Polish stream tomorrow, and then I'm going to probably go back to PicoCTF. What's my current setup? My current setup is described on the ginveil.live, where you can see FAQ, and there's like also my hardware specified. Did you play with TPM2 before, like encryption, secure files, etc.? TPM2? No, I haven't played with TPM2. Trusted Platform Module 2? I know, I played a bit with TPM, but only a bit, so... Yeah, that's all I can say. Cool, let's finish it for the day. Thank you to my moderators who are here. Thank you to Masakra, thank you to Foxtrot Charlie, to KrzaQ, to Disconnected. And you You have too much light in my room. Yeah, I need to fix the lighting. But I didn't do like streaming for so long, but my setup is... I had to do kind of like reset some stuff. So thank you to my moderators. Thank you for everyone for being here. I'm going to probably do the next stream about picoctf. Yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, and happy hacking, happy programming. And I'm going to leave you with some music and see you next week in a couple of weeks. Yeah, something like that. Cheers.